What's up you guys, I'm Dan, this is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll look at my picks for savings accounts in 2024. So similar to a recent video I did where I gave you my picks for the best checking accounts in 2024, I thought it would make sense to kind of extend that and start looking at savings accounts in this video. So just as in that video, I have a certain criteria that I apply with, coming up with what I think is a good savings or checking account, in this case, a savings. Those criteria are basically three. First, that it be at a bank and not at some intermediary. Second, that it have a strong yield for any balance. And third, that there aren't any other weird conditions. So there's a huge universe of savings account options that are out there. And by the way, quick little side note, I've noticed that basically like when you go to NerdWallet, I don't know if it's the same thing with Bankrate, but I definitely noticed it with NerdWallet, that their list of like the best such and such type of account that you get is basically a list of promotions that they're kind of partnered up with at that time. So that's kind of different from, really kind of a top 10 list or, the kinds of things that we had in the past. So that was kind of unfortunate to realize that when doing my research for both this video and for the checking account video as well. In any case, because there's such a huge universe of different places where you might get an account, of course we're not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to give you kind of some examples of applying my criteria to narrow that down. So for instance, I've had accounts with both Chase and Bank of America. Actually, I still have some kinds of accounts with them, but I would personally not choose to have my savings account with them for the following reasons. First, and probably the most important characteristic of a savings account is its ability to provide a yield. In other words, to earn some interest and fight against inflation. Inflation is certainly a hot topic right now. But in any case, their accounts earn an APY of 0.01%. So this is not going to do very much to fight inflation, which is at like what, 2.7, 2.8%, something like that. So that's not good. We're actually losing purchasing power over time if we keep our funds in accounts like these. And then to make matters worse, although there are ways to avoid them, there are monthly maintenance fees. So you could avoid these through, either a certain minimum balance or through other requirements. But both of these things are pretty old school things that brick and mortar banks would offer back in, years ago. This was kind of standard to have, very low yields. Well, it depends on the interest rate climate, right? But anyway, we have very low yields even in a higher interest rate climate now, or medium interest rate climate. And then also these monthly maintenance fees and stuff. It's very, in a world of high yield online savings accounts and the competition that's brought on, relatively archaic and definitely not my choice. So these would not qualify. Next, we go back to my first criteria, which is that the account actually be at a bank and not some intermediary. And so, as in my checking account video where I talked about this as well, now there's, in this age of fintech, it's a little bit hard sometimes to tell who your account is actually with. And, the big example that came to mind and we talked about last time was Yada, where this was a savings account that was kind of gamified savings to get, like almost gambling for returns. But anyway, it sounded like the original premise sounded good as a way to incentivize savings and make it fun. Hard to make a savings account fun. But it ended up being that there were multiple layers. So there's the Yada app, then there was Synchrony in the middle, and Evolve, and then this Evolve Bank and Trust was the actual bank where the funds were supposed to be, and there was a whole mismatch there. So anyway, I don't know how that's all shaken out just yet. But point being that these complicated relationships can make things difficult when things go south, and that's when you really care about these structures, right? So more on that later in some other respects. But anyway, two examples of ones that would not meet this criteria for me. One would be UFB Direct. So they do offer a 5.02% APY, and if you bundle it with a checking account, an even higher yield. However, they're not a bank, and so the accounts are actually at Axos Bank. So you could potentially have get accounts directly at Axos Bank, but I don't really have any knowledge about them. So if you have, let us know in the comments below. Another account that would not meet my criteria is a Wealthfront account. So they have, I guess it's kind of like a cash management sort of deal, but anyway, they offer a 5% yield. And if you provide a referral, they'll bump that up to like 5.5%. So quite attractive in terms of the APY. However, again, Wealthfront itself is not a bank, and they've partnered with Green Dot Bank as their banking partner, and I don't know anything about them either. Okay, so we can winnow down the list of options a little bit more given this kind of criteria about it actually being at a bank. Next, we look at other conditions. And here, I think the best example is SoFi, which I guess is short for social finance. Anyway, pretty trendy. A lot of people are talking it up. I suspect that they're probably giving, there's some kind of partnership with a lot of influencers, YouTubers, and that kind of thing. Or it's the referral links that they're very popular in a way for YouTubers to generate income. You'll notice that I only have referral links to products that I actually use and love. And they're generally not, well, I don't know. I guess I do talk about the products some in the channels, but you know what I mean. It's not like a big ad for them. Anyway, so with SoFi, they do offer a very attractive 4.6% APY as of the current filming. Little quick disclaimer, all of the yields that we talk about, you know, these specific numbers are subject to change, but that should be obvious. Anyway, and as of right now, they're also offering up to a $300 sign-up bonus depending on certain criteria. And that certain criteria is where the issue comes in, because actually you can't just open up the savings account and get that 4.6% APY. You also need to get a checking account with them, and that checking account has to have direct deposit. And the sign-up bonus is determined based on how much that direct deposit is for. So the larger the direct deposit is, then the more you're going to earn on that. And that direct deposit can't just be an ACH transfer that you set up to be recurring between another one of your accounts and SoFi. This actually has to be either from the government or an employer. So for these reasons, it doesn't qualify under my criteria. And then another side note that's, you know, just something that kind of leaves a not the best taste in my mouth, I suppose, is that they advertise having $2 million in FDIC insurance, right? Up to $2 million in FDIC insurance. And as we know, FDIC will insure accounts up to $250,000. And so the way that you could, you know, gain insurance on more than that would be to have multiple accounts, because it's a per account insurance cap. And so what SoFi has done, but you have to kind of dig down deeper into the fine print and find out that no, SoFi Bank, of course, can only have FDIC insurance up to $250,000 on the account. What they're actually doing is working with a network of banking partners in what they call the SoFi Insured Deposit Program. So again, it's a little bit more of a complicated system that may or may not be the best thing to do in a situation where there is a default and major problems going on, or a run, and we want to take it, you know, that FDIC insurance is actually going to be important. So again, these more, you know, complicated structures are not somewhere that I want to be personally, you know, when things go south. Now, I could be wrong, and everything might work perfectly, and you know, for someone that can meet the direct deposit requirements and all that, like, this may be a good account for some people. It just doesn't meet my personal criteria. So what are some examples of accounts that do match my criteria? Well, the first one is Marcus by Goldman Sachs. You've probably heard of them, either, you know, Marcus or Goldman Sachs. They offer a 4.4% APY, so not too far away from what SoFi was offering at 4.6%. But here, there are no hoops to jump through. So you don't have to have a checking account, and you don't have to have any minimum balance. There are no fees. You don't have to have direct deposit. And so it's, and I hear that the technology is quite good. So I haven't actually used it. So I haven't looked at their app and their interface, but I've heard good things. So I think this is definitely one possible option. Another option that I haven't used but looks quite attractive to me, especially more so after doing research for today's video, is American Express. So American Express offers a 4.25% APY on their savings account. This is lower, but still, you know, quite good. But the really neat things are, and this is almost a side note, and it might seem kind of contrary to what I've been talking about earlier about bundling, but when getting an online or a high yield savings account, because there's a delay in time between when you transfer funds from one bank to another, it can be very convenient and you'll be able to access your cash faster if you have both your checking and your savings at the same institution.
I said I would, but the way my bank account is set up, the thing is I got a checking in the savings, but all the money is in my savings. So I got to switch it to my checking, but it's going to take 3 business days. I don't think it's going to go through.
So while my selection criteria says that I don't want them to force you to have a checking account, I do think it's good if you're able to also have a checking account at this institution that is a good checking account. So that's not the case for Marcus by Goldman Sachs. And I didn't like, again, that whole direct deposit requirement with SoFi, so we haven't really, kind of broken that analysis so far. But here with American Express, which I think is pretty cool, they do offer like a 1% APY. There's membership rewards that you can earn on purchases as well with the checking account, and you have fee-free ATM withdrawals on 70,000 locations in the Allpoint and MoneyPass networks. On top of that, they offer some version of fraud protection and purchase protection, two things that are nice benefits to have on a debit card, which are key things that we generally take for granted as having on a credit card. You earn the rewards at the rate of 1 point per $2, so relatively slow, but still, depending on how you redeem the rewards, their valuation can be different. Like you can get a lot more if you use them, say, for airline partners and that kind of thing in order to get high-value tickets. Whereas if you just try to get cash from them, then it's going to be a relatively low yield there. But in any case, while I haven't tried it, if I did have an American Express credit card, which I don't, I just find a better value out of the Capital One Duo than having the American Express Platinum, for instance. But if I did, it would be probably very attractive to have the whole ecosystem together, to have the Amex checking, the Amex savings, and the Amex credit card. So that could be a really attractive option. Next are two that I have actually used myself. One is Ally Bank. They offer a 4.2% APY, so again, fairly comparable to Amex. You can also get a checking account, and that checking account will offer a 0.25% APY. And so I had both of those products in the past. I'm very happy with them, no complaints whatsoever, good technology, so on and so forth. And then we've also got Capital One 360, which also made my list on the checking accounts as well. So obviously, yeah, there's a checking, earns 0.1% as well as an option. I've used them, again, great interface, very easy to use. Never really had to use their customer service, but I assume it's fine. And that is one thing too, is that if you have an experience with the customer service for these different institutions, it's always helpful to kind of know how that experience is, how good they are. So let us know in the comments below. So in terms of what are kind of my top picks for the savings accounts, they would be those four. You've got Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, Capital One 360, and then also the American Express as well. So those would be the top four picks. But I kind of want to give you a bonus here, and this is not even a savings account anymore. It's what I personally do instead of having a high yield savings, and that is money market mutual funds. So these are very different. Rather than the accounts being assured by FDIC, of course, they're insured by SIPC. And this would be like a brokerage account at whatever brokerage you're using. In my case, it's Schwab. But of course, there is more inherent risk here in that the money market mutual fund could lose value. In other words, the dollar could be worth less than $1. That would be like breaking the buck. But these events are relatively rare and not something that I'm losing any sleep over. I use a fund called SWVXX, which has a current 7-day yield of 5.11%, which after a 0.35% gross expense ratio, leaves a net yield of 4.76%, so that's quite attractive. On top of that, the money market mutual fund will pay dividends rather than paying interest. So that's my current choice, a little bit sneaky, but my favorite savings account here as of right now in 2024 is actually not a savings account, it's a money market mutual fund at my brokerage firm. What do you guys use? Are there any great options out there that I missed? Do please let us know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.